One of the biggest causes of people not being able to break out and break free from their anxiety, from their depression, from their stress, from their addictions is victim. And what I mean by that, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday I had 10 of my students and we got together just to sit down and discuss and chat and talk about deep learning and how they're going, etc. And one thing that is clear, one thing that is very clear is that, and the brain does not distinguish, okay? Many people, there's a lot of people out there, and many of my students gave me some stories yesterday that I freaked out, because some people have had some really horrible things happen to them. Some people are real victims. And I'm not gonna come here and underplay anyone that's a victim, and nor am I saying that, oh, you're a victim and get out of it, get over it. No, okay? But what I will say to this, as long as you stay into this victim thought, the brain is gonna cage you, okay? See this? You're not going to be able to break out. And when you have that victim mentality thought in your brain that everything that's happened to you is someone else's fault, again, I'm not saying it may or may not be, but what I am saying, we need to find a way to break out, because unless you break out from this, not much will change in your life. You're still going to go through the depression, you're still going to have your addictions, you're still going to be in the same level where you are right now. You're still going to be complaining that you're with your boss, or you're not happy with your work, or you're still going to be complaining about something and gossiping and all that, because you've got that victim mentality. And again, there's a lot of people, rightly so, that have had a lot of bad things happen to them, really nasty things happen to them. But we have to find a way for ourselves to break out. One of my favourite leaders of all time is Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela found a way to break out of this. Nelson Mandela was a real victim. Nelson Mandela had his people who were real victims. But Nelson Mandela found a way to break out of that. He said this. Even the people, the prison guards that had imprisoned him were at his wedding, for example, as an example, because he had to break out of that, and he did. And by breaking his mind out of that victim, because if your brain thinks you're a victim, if your brain starts playing on that victim, it becomes a process all your life. You will always be in jail in your brain. And what did Nelson Mandela do? He broke out when he was in jail for 27 years. This is a true victim, fighting for his people who are true victims. What did he do? He was saying, this is my practice, this is my training. I'm training to lead. I'm training because I'm a leader. I'm leading my people to freedom. I'm leading my people out of slavery. I'm leading my people out of racism and discrimination. Because he found a way to break out in his head. Because the moment you break out, you're free. Nelson Mandela was a deep learner. And Nelson Mandela was a problem solver. And so he had to break out. He had to break out from this. And whilst most people are in that, it's very difficult for you to then do great things. It's very difficult for you to live a fulfilled, deep learning life. And that's the reason why Nelson Mandela will be spoken about for thousands of years to come. He was an iconic leader, and he was a true victim. He was a true victim, and his people were true victims. But he, in his brain, did not play that. He broke out of that. And he was basically, I'm a leader, I'm leading. This is my problem, this is my time. I will lead. This is my problems for me to solve. He found a way to solve this problem despite all the difficult things that happened to him. Despite everything they threw at him, he found a way, and he did come out of prison, and he did lead, and he did change the world. And so, going back to speaking to the group of students that I had a chat with yesterday, what was interesting was many of them spoke about this. Many of them started to, and this was even unintentional, just through discussions, and they started to blame their partner, they started to blame their dad, they started to blame their boss, this happened to me when I was 10 years old. And so they've still got all these addictions, and they've still got all this stress, and they've still got all this anxiety, and they still haven't moved. And we're talking some really intelligent people in this meeting yesterday, but they have this. And unless you break out of that, find a way to break out of that. Find a way to break out of that in your head. Because if you don't, that cycle of where you are at the moment will never ever be broken. And the way you break it is deep learning education. It's what I'm teaching. It's changing the cause, changing the brain. It's changing how we think, how we action. We don't procrastinate as deep learners. We jump in. We solve problems towards our ecstatic desire. We don't analyze it. We just keep going. We push through. And we never ever play the victim again. There's brain exercises that I use, and there's brain practices that I teach which help you break out of this. And the moment you break out of this, you will notice everything in your life will change. You will notice your life get better. You will notice the feeling of anxiety will go. You will notice you're doing stuff and you're getting ahead. You will notice your value increase. Because Nelson Mandela never played the victim, his value kept on increasing and increasing and increasing. He didn't start blaming people. He just said, let's go, we've got to do this, we've got to solve the problem. Keep solving the problem, keep solving the problem. Keep finding different ways to solve the problem despite our mistakes and failures and setbacks. Keep going, keep moving. It becomes relentless. And that's what happens when you're a deep learner, because the brain won't let you. The brain will just keep on going. It's like a machine. That's why I've called it the deep learning machine. You just keep on going and going and going. There is no other system in the world that will create a bigger effect on your life and on your brain than deep learning education. There's very, very few people in the world that understand it. There's very, very few people that know how to teach it. I'm privileged enough that I was taught it by the best, and I'm privileged enough that I've been living this way for the last 6 years. And I'm also privileged enough that I've been involved with some of the best, smartest people in AI. And so being in that privilege and being in that position of deep learning education and AI, I'm just about to launch something that's going to change most people's lives. So stay tuned and get ready, because this is a revolution that's not only going to change the way you think and learn, but it's going to change every single aspect of your life. And if you've had addictions and depression, and if you feel you're not getting ahead in life is because you're probably still in this mentality. Because someone else tells you, you know the worst thing your friends can say to you? Oh yes, you're a victim. Oh yes, they did the wrong thing by you. Oh yes, they played you, or it's their fault, the reason why you're not there. Oh, you should be living in the USA. You probably get a better response. That's all bullshit. That's all poison that your friends give you so you can feel like a victim. And when you're feeling like a victim, it's like putting cancer in your brain. It spirals and spirals and spirals, and guess what? Nothing ever happens. And if you are a real victim, and a lot of people are, like Nelson Mandela, let's find a way to break out of that. And let's find a way to use our deep learning practices, our actions, to change the world.